I think is Mercury in retrograde right now. This is what's happening. And that search for me eventually led me to my ultimate love and passion, which is the Akashic Records. For me, when I first heard the words Akashic Records, it struck me like a deep chord, deep inside ringing. And I knew that I needed to explore it. And when I finally had my first Akashic Records reading, it was incredible. The energy was incredible. I felt like I was coming home. I was seen and completely loved unconditionally. It was an incredibly healing experience. All of those places inside where I felt limited, unworthy, or had that harsh inner critic, maybe some of you can relate to that. Um, I felt like all of those things were bathed in light, and I felt lighter from that experience. And what brought me to the reading that day were my core issues that were holding me back from stepping into my full potential. And what I discovered in the Akashic Records was profound. I gained insights into the origin of my patterns of feeling unworthy, of being unable to speak in front of people, even among my friends at work. Feeling imposter syndrome inside of myself, that the origin of these patterns went beyond this lifetime. It came from a past life a long time ago. And it was like finding a missing piece of a puzzle that finally made sense to me. Like, oh my gosh, I understand what the deeper roots were that were holding me back. And understanding allowed for a shift that I don't think I could have experienced any other way. And I hadn't experienced up until that point, even though I had studied so many modalities of healing, human potential, personality, all of that. And it was about aligning with a deeper truth about myself within myself. After that session in the Akashic Records, I felt a subtle but very real shift within myself, a greater sense of self love, of feeling and being more aligned with my soul's truth. It wasn't a dramatic overnight change. It wasn't as if I woke up the next day and I was a totally new person, but it was undeniably real and it was incredibly profound. Hold on. Okay. And that kind of deep soul level healing is really at the heart of the work that I do in the Akashic Records today. My old beliefs and thought patterns began to melt away. And it was with the techniques like the ones that we are going to share with you today that Teri Jo is going to share with you. It's with these techniques that I was slowly able to make the changes in my day to day life, to really evolve, to let go of old patterns and step into more of my divinity and the truth of who I am as a divine soul. It's through these kinds of techniques that I was able to finally own my voice, be willing to be seen, to be able to be here now speaking with you in this webinar. And so that's why I really am so happy and excited to introduce to you our very special guest today, Teri Jo Wheeler. Teri Jo is a truly gifted coach and educator. She's highly attuned, creative, and deeply empathic. And she has a passion for helping people connect with their own inner superpowers, the wisdom, compassion, and beauty, the divine innocence that we all have within us. That is what she's going to help you connect with today. And her techniques are really innovative and they're nurturing, they're incredibly supportive, and I can't wait for you to experience her work. So without further ado, let's give a huge virtual welcome to the amazing Teri Jo Wheeler. Teri Jo, step on up. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Hi, Teri Jo. I love this audio.
Hey everyone. Gosh, so good to be here. I'm sorry. I apologize for the me. That was me in the background doing weird things with the screen share. Because anyway, when you try to do a PowerPoint, it freezes and I couldn't find I was panicking. So sorry if that looked a little messy there. I don't like looking messy. I'm so happy to be here and I have tears in my eyes because I was a kindergarten teacher. And I'm just so feeling like that teacher part of me that loves, loves, loves all of your 5-year-olds. And I have a request. One is if you can just type in your first name, because I see some have like, iPhone or whatever. If you can just type your first name, it helps with the connection. And then the other request is if you're comfortable to, turn your camera on. I know it's early and for some people, and it may not be comfortable, but I feel like that romper room experience of like, I want to see you. Um, and it's okay if you don't. There is one point in this process, we're going to actually do a process with in breakout rooms with two partners. It'll be a party of three. In that process, I'm going to ask that you have your video on for sure, or that you don't participate in the process, just because that it's more intimate when you're doing a process with people that have their cameras on. So that was just a logistical thing. I'm so glad to be here. This is literally, there's two of my favorite subjects in the world, talking about the higher self and the inner child. And I do form kind of presentations on the inner child. My inner child loves when I talk about her and when we talk to anyone's inner child and help them connect to that part of themselves because it's so precious and it's so vulnerable and it's so creative and so joyous and so curious when we have access to that part. This is the younger part of us. I want to also say how I know Suara. Suara and I attended the University of Santa Monica many, many years ago, and I don't even know when that was. I was class of '96. I think she was a couple years later, but we assisted together on the assisting team. And so we've been seekers forever. I started when I was in my 20s. I lost my mother to leukemia when I was 1.5, which really shaped my personality in terms of I felt like I had to figure it out. I had to understand what Earth School was about, what people were about, how did they work, how did I work, how do I fit in this whole thing. So I've been really pretty much obsessed with personal growth work since I was in my late teens, early 20s. And once I found the University of Santa Monica, it resonated so deeply with my soul that I stayed for 30 years on and off as an assistant. And so they teach what we're going to talk about here. They call it the inner counselor. That was how I was first introduced to it. And I have a keynote, a PowerPoint um, what do you call it? PowerPoint slideshow. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to kind of walk through that with you. And then just in terms of how the setup is, there's going to be about 30 minutes of content. We're going to do an activity for about 30 minutes where we go in the breakout rooms and have an experience communicating with our higher self. And then we'll come out of that and we'll do a little bit of sharing from that. I will have a little part before we go into the tree. It's called a trio process. Before we go into that, where there will be a little bit of time for questions, but the bigger sharing will be after we do the process because, a lot of times there's breakthroughs in that, and it's a beautiful experience. So I'm so grateful that you each came today. Thank you for just being here and being interested in this. And just by show of digital hands, how many of you communicate with your higher self in a pretty regular way through meditation, through conversation, through voice dialogue? Great, great. And I know some of you, I can't see you, but that's great. So this will be, just a deepening of that relationship. Okay, so let me figure out how to get to share the screen. And we're going to go right here. Okay, so this is a challenge that I'm having. My mouse doesn't come on the screen when I'm doing this. Swara, I don't know if you can tell me what to do because I can't even click to change it.
If you click the down arrow, you should be able to change the next slide.
Okay, okay. That
Yeah.
was okay. So here we are. This is one of my favorite paintings. It's by a woman named Autumn Sky. I got a poster of it in my house. I have it everywhere. It means so much to me because to me, this is the three essential selves. You can see on the bottom, there's the inner child, always with us. And then, which I'm not going to talk much about today, but then there's in the middle would be the present or the conscious self, the adult self. And then, of course, there's the higher self always with us. And I like to say it's past, present, and future. The higher self encompasses it all. And of course, there are shadow aspects and ego aspects and the judge and the critic and all of that, which play into a very important part of our inner family. But to me, there are the three essential selves, which I really do focus a lot on. And I even do a trio practice with those three parts of myself. And, oh, there was something else I was going to say about that, but we'll see as I go on. There'll be more, I'm sure. Okay, so I am doing there we go. So, just a little bit about me. I told you about my mother passing away, which really shaped my curriculum. So in my 20s, I remember having this experience where I had gone to college or I was in college. I had a good job. I was in a cool place with my cool friends, very social, hip and all that. And I remember thinking, is this it? I just wasn't like feeling very fulfilled. And then that was really kind of the question that led me into deeper work. And then eventually I found University of Santa Monica and many other modalities, which I'm sure everyone here is a seeker. So you know what I'm talking about, especially being in LA. There was so many things going on. I'm also an educator. It's just the love of my life is to share with people in the educational process. And of course, kindergarten was beautiful experience. Because when you're 5, you already know all this stuff. That's my view. We haven't fragmented ourselves yet at 5 years old. We're in our pure loving hearts and really connected with our soul and our higher self. And then I'm a soul-centered life coach as well. And I will say this as a tip, my coaching work, um, all of it is based on the inner child and the higher self. And one of the reasons for that is interesting. I don't want the responsibility of somebody else's life. They have their own internal guidance system. We all have our own internal guidance system. No one knows you better than you know yourself. So what I teach is how to connect and really have regular conversations and more intimacy with that part of yourself that knows the way, that knows how to support you, that knows what your strengths are, that knows the areas you're growing in, the obstacles, and it loves you unconditionally. I'm also a home organizer. That's my little boots on the ground, touch things, move things around. I love systems. I love order. And that doesn't mean I'm always orderly, by the way. I just love it everywhere else. That's the one thing I can control is how things feel, how spaces feel. So that's a little bit about me. Ground rules and guidelines just for our time together. Be present with your camera on. The camera on is really for the process. And there will be a time where I'll say if you don't want to stay for the process, now is the time to go. So don't worry about that right now. Stay through the process because if we start the process, we want you to finish that particular process because you're with other people. Use everything for your learning, growth, and upliftment. That's with everything in life, a ground rule. Um, I think I've told you this already. I learned about the inner counselor in the master's program. This was a program taught by Ron and Mary Holnick, doctors. They were, sorry, I'm probably talking a little fast because I'm excited. Um, let's just breathe. Let me connect with my higher self. Everyone connect with your higher self right now. I like to put my hand on my heart, my hand on my belly. Take a breath. Yeah, I'm still so excited. Okay. So, um, how many of you just raise your hand are pretty good at giving other people advice? Kind of can see where their challenges are, what's going on with them, like they need to stop doing that. If they did that, they would be better. Well, a lot of us are very good at that. Um, so this whole idea of counseling ourselves, which was the concept that was introduced in the USM, is really made sense to me when I heard it. I was like, yeah, I am good at giving advice to other people. Why aren't I following my own advice? So what we're going to be looking at is an actual practice to be counseling ourselves. And I'm not talking about just thinking in our heads because that's different than having the conversation, right? Um, so the other thing is, so I was introduced to it. We had to do these papers regularly. It's a 2-year program. And then like I said, I volunteered for many years. But then I got away from the practice, like we can all do sometimes, right? We're like, this is great. The ego gets a hold of it. It feels super confident. I did that already. I know how to do it. I don't need to do it anymore. I don't know about you, but that's totally how my ego operates. Um, And then I got into a crisis. And I won't go into a lot of detail. I just was depressed. Nothing meant anything to me. Why bother? All of that. And it was pretty consistent for many months. And I remember sitting on a beach in Mexico. I was living there at the time. And I heard my higher self say, it doesn't always come in and poke us because I'll talk more about that in a minute. But this one said, what is the one tool that made a difference? Because part of what I was overwhelmed with was how many tools I had: affirmations, visualization, meditation, you name it. And none of them felt special or grabbed me anymore because I had done them all. Who wants to keep doing them? Anyway, it said that, and I knew right away. It was the self-counselings. It was the talking to my higher self. And so it said, great, let's start doing that. So I started doing a practice daily, sitting down with coffee and talking to my higher self. And I did it on the computer. I had a document open on my desktop, and I would just go in and put Teri Jo, and I would lay it all out on the line. Blah 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 blah. This is wrong. This is what I hate about life. This is what's messed up. A lot of it was complaining because I was in a dark place. And the higher self would then come in and type its response. I really hear you. I see you. I'm with you. I know this is hard. Um, Not a lot of telling me what to do, but being with me. That's like the biggest gift of the higher self is when you create space for it, you can feel it being with you. Any of you had that experience where if you, especially if you do voice dialogue, you're like, and even Suara doing the Akashic records. I get readings done, a few readings a year. I always feel the beings of love with me, my higher guides with me. It's such a juicy, delicious feeling. So, so and the other thing I want to say that is a benefit of this process is since I started doing that regular practice, and believe me, there are a few years in between that I wasn't doing it and I fall off the wagon still. I'm back on this year, but I never feel alone. Ever, ever, ever. I'm single, no children, um, good amount of friends, but don't spend a lot of time with them. But I know that higher self is like my best buddy. It is always here. I also know my inner child is here and she's very vocal. So it's basically a party of three all the time. So I just want to say that it's the most beautiful thing ever to develop a regular practice like this. Okay. So I am trying oh, okay, there. So you pretty much know what the higher self is. I just want to give you some other words. We were introduced to it as the inner counselor. Some people call it the higher power, the soul, our authentic self, our essence. You may have some other names. If you have another name for it, put it in the chat. Your divine guidance, your guardian angel. Um, the what I want to say about it though is it's personal. This is not the God in the sky or the big God that over what do we want to call it, reigns over everything. We're connected to that. It's personal to us, this higher self. It has been with us our whole life. It knows us intimately and completely. It's been with us through many lifetimes. In my experience, it knows like our whole, deal. It includes things like insight, intuition, inner knowing, when you get that felt sense of something, deja vus, synchronicities. I'm sure you have other examples. The clairs, clair audio, clair visual, clair sentient. Yeah, so that's that. Qualities: unconditionally accepting and loving, non-judgmental about all parts and experiences. And this I can't stress enough. How many of you have a friend that's completely non-judgmental about your life? Some of us may have that. Most of us don't. How many of you have a family member that's completely non-judgmental about your life? I don't. Okay, but imagine you have this best friend that's in there that knows every little quirky thing about you, all the dark things you've done, the habits you have, the addictions, and it's still like, I'm here. I got you. I love you. I'm not going anywhere. That's what Teri Jo's going through right now. It's okay. right? There's just this, and that's because it has a total learning orientation to life. That is its whole thing. It's here to learn and grow, to experience things. So if you stay in the horrible relationship or if you leave the horrible relationship, it's going to say, well, we'll see what experiences we have in that. It's not going to really push you get out of that unless it's really time and your curriculum is done and you say, Spirit, I don't want to be in this anymore. Then it's be like, come on, let's go. Let's go on to the next adventure. This is my perception of the and my experience with the higher self. None of this is authority, by the way. I'm not speaking as authority on this. Sometimes I come across that way. I'm a Leo. So my apologies if I'm like, this is the way it is. This is my experience. You check it out, right? And you have your own experiences with this. That that gets to the next point that it's non-intrusive. Usually it won't impose its will on us because this is a school of free will. So we get to, as the conscious self or the human self, ask for the help and ask for the guidance. It's eternal and always available. Never have I gone to the higher self once and it said, I'm not available right now, I'm busy. Never once. Imagine having that kind of access to divine wisdom. So yeah, here's a little slide. It's a fully realized, enlightened aspect of our being, knows everything about you, and holds the blueprint of your soul's journey. I had to put this in here because raise your hand if you saw the movie Soul. I love that film. So um, insightful. That animation talking about the soul journey, right? So this is part of the philosophy that we learned in the University of Santa Monica. It really resonated with my soul. Not at first. At first, I was very resistant because one of the things the school didn't say this, but people in my class were saying, well, we choose our parents. And I was like, I did not choose my parents. Are you kidding me? I didn't choose to have an alcoholic dad and a mother that died and this stepmother and blah, 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 the whole story. We all have our story, right? But the more I thought about it, I was like, what if I did? It's so liberating when you think about that. What if I was a soul and I was like, I want to go to Earth School and have that experience? You see how it just opens things up, right? So anyway, this is what I wrote with this. If you haven't seen this movie, I just highly recommend it. Our souls meet with the karmic board before we come to Earth School. And this has been affirmed again through the School of University Santa Monica, and it just, like I said, resonates. We get an overview of the lessons we're coming to learn and the skills we have and what we will cultivate. We are given a body and an ego personality to fit in our unique curriculum and karma, and we agree to this. And then this is one of my favorite cartoons or memes, I should say. It just makes me laugh because raise your hand if you've been thinking this, especially right now. Like, what the hell was I thinking? I do not want to be here. No, this is not okay. I don't have the courage. I don't have the skills. Please take me home. I even say this sometimes, even with my close connection with my higher self. I'm ready, spirit. I can work on the other side. It's okay. Spirit gets a laugh, gives you a hug, and says, I know, honey, it's hard, right? But I feel seen and heard. I get it out. Okay, so I can't bring this talk of the higher self in without talking about the ego. And I personally think the ego gets a terrible rap. The ego is not our amigo, kill the ego talk to me is really damaging. And I actually think it's the ego that says that. It's a trick, you know. It represents the flavor of our humanness. It's in sync with our curriculum, with what we came to learn, and with our karma, which we came to clear. There is such thing as healthy ego. We have survival skills. We're funny, smart. We may be affectionate. We may be organized. We may be type A, type B, type Z. It doesn't matter. But all those things help us along our path. And then there, of course, there's the unhealthy ego, which is unhealed parts of us or shadow parts of us, selfishness, liar, manipulative, addicted, narcissism, all of that. That's the unhealthy part. And we do have that because we have to work through something here, right? I have bossy and controlling on blast. No matter how much I work on it, it's still there. It's still part of my stuff, right? And so, a lot of it is uh, bringing love into those places and talking to your higher self. Higher self, what do I do about this bossy part? It's here again and it's trying to take over my life. Well, let's give that bossy part a voice. Let's hear what it wants to say. And that's parts work, which some of you have probably done. I'm not going to go into this, but I wanted to include this slide because there are many things you could look up on the ego versus the soul. I'm sure this is a very educated audience in this type of subject. And I don't really like how do what is it called? How much duality there is in this description. I just think of the soul as expansive and always wanting to grow, and the ego is wanting to be comfortable and and pleased. Like if I were to sum it up, it's like the ego is like, I just want to hang out and get all my needs met, which are always changing because I'm never happy. And then the soul is like, ooh, what's that? I want to experience that. That would be my definition of the two. And then again, it's up to us to choose to connect and communicate with the higher self because we have free will. It doesn't impose itself on us, though it can nudge, whisper, and poke us. Like that one time when I was in need and it said, what is the tool that really helped you? It can take us 50 lifetimes or 10,000 lifetimes. There's no judgment on that to remember what and who we are, to come into that resonance and that integration. And basically, that we're a soul having the human experience. So, the inner counseling practice is gestalting or voice dialogue. Some of you have probably done some internal family systems. That's working with parts. It kind of falls in this family of working with the parts of ourself. And it can be verbal or written. I also realized it can be artistic. You can paint to your higher self. You can color to your higher self. You can dance to your higher self. There are many ways you can have a relation. The biggest thing is we're building a relationship, like an active relationship with your higher self. And so that it's really, the more you talk to it, the more accessible it is because you're not in your chattery mind thinking you know what to do and what's right, and then having that change and flip flop, which is usually what the mind does. So we're not going to, you can still stay here if you're not planning to do the process. I'll tell you specifically when to leave. And I want to share this just so you kind of know what we're going to do. And then you could decide. I hope you stay. Um, so this is a process, again, learned in University of Santa Monica. We did everything in trios. It was very experiential. So we would learn a concept and then we would go into our trios. In the trios, there are three chairs or three spots. There's the sharer, the person that's openly sharing what the process is and what they're experiencing, and in this case, it'll be sharing the situation they want help with their higher self. There's the facilitator who is the space holder. They're basically there to kind of keep the sharer on track, follow, ask any questions that may get them back on track. But remember, the facilitator's not healing them, fixing them, giving them advice, or talking about their own story. They are literally there holding the space and keeping them on track and sending them love, beaming them lots of love. And then the neutral observer, this role is used to be so boring for me because I was not neutral. I like to talk or I like to listen. I didn't like to do nothing. But it grew on me and became one of my favorite spots. This person is silent. I recommend you go on mute so there's no chance of you jumping in with your brilliance. And um, basically, you are the battery that is sending them love continuously. You're observing, you're neutral, you're sending both of the people, the sharer and the facilitator, love. And so that is the process. It will be in breakout rooms of three. There may be a one or two rooms that have two, and we'll tell you what to do if that happens. Um, and if you're from USM, raise your hand if you're from USM. I know there are a few of my friends here. You can raise your digital hand too if you're not on screen. Good to see you all. You know the drill. You know how to do it. The process. And actually, if you're from USM, I'm going to request that you be the sharer first because the sharer, the more vulnerable the first person is, it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the trio. So it's a request. You don't have to do it, obviously. Um, I'm going to tell you why I love trios. I believe in the law of three. It's an actual law. You could look it up. And three is where there is no duality if there's three. So when I think of a union with a man and a wife, I think of man, or let's say partner, partner A, partner B, and God. That's the Trinity, right? Father, Son, Holy Spirit, mother, daughter, Holy Spirit. That's what I say for me. Um, because I like my gender and but it's not really gender specific, you know. But there's just this, oh, in the science, there's atoms, neutrons, and electrons, right? In a lot of nature, there's three. And so I love the trio process for that reason. You get more perception of three different people, but also there's less chance of duality coming in because there's three beings of light in the experience. So I just want to share that. So there will be three rotations in this process. You're each going to get 7 minutes to share. I'm going to come out over the live broadcast for each rotation, and I will say 3 minutes left, letting you know you have 3 minutes of your turn, the person that's sharing. Um, and then when that finishes, I'll come in and say, I'll ring a bell and I'll say, bring that to completion, stretch, and rotate your seating. That just means the next person's going to go. You're not literally rotating your seating, but I'll tell you how to move. I'll say, share is going to go to the neutral observer. So you don't have to think about any of that. The only thing you need to know is when you first get in the breakout room, who's going to be the sharer first, and who's going to be the neutral observer, and who's going to be the facilitator. Okay. So that's just a little setup where I still am not asking you to leave yet. I don't think I need to do a demo because I've already kind of showed you throughout how I talk to my higher self, but I will do this. When you have, we're gonna, in a minute, we're gonna get to an area, you finding an area you want to work on, and I want you to pick one area that you're troubled with. And when I do it at my house, I do it, I do it three ways. Sometimes I do it in my car. When I'm in my car driving, I do it with a scrunchie. So the scrunchie lives on my left hand, which I associate with my higher self. And I'm driving along to my client's house and I have 15 minutes and I'm like, "Ooh, I have time to do," I usually do a 10 to 15-minute one. I have time to do my talk to my higher self about this. And sometimes I'll talk about my clients. What can I do for this client? But then I'll say, I usually will say a prayer. I'll call in the light first, always call in the light, which we're going to do. And then I'll say, Spirit, higher self, like I'm going to do a little example right now. Um, I'm having problems with my brother, as you know, and I'm really sad because I miss him and I feel like we're so distant and I don't know what to do right now. This is after I've done the prayer. And then I'll just switch it over. Sorry, that was Teri Jo is on this hand. This is my higher self. Um, we know you're really having a hard time with this, and we just want you to know he's having a hard time too. This is not easy for what you're going through, but you will see each other on Saturday and there will be a connection in your heart and you will feel it and there will be a healing that will happen. Just trust us, trust his higher self. We're with you. So that's just a really short thing that I want to show you, and you could go back and forth. Okay. You don't have scrunchies. I didn't tell you to bring them. You don't need them. But I do like to do something so I symbolize to my brain that a different part is talking. So if I don't have a scrunchie handy, I'll just cross my fingers like, okay, this is the side that's talking. This, you don't have to do that. I'm just very tactile like that. The other way I do it, as I explained, is in a document where I'll type, and I'm a writer, and it usually goes very deep when I do that way. But the car way is my little shortcut because I'm driving somewhere and I need some help. And then the other way is I literally have three chairs set up that I go to, three empty chairs in my house, and we do the little talk with my this one with my inner child, my conscious self, and my higher self. So I just wanted to share that part. There are three main questions, and then we'll get to your questions. And I know I'm actually running a little bit behind, so we got to get into it. And once I do this part, I'll ask you to leave. How do I know it's my higher self and not another part of me, ego shadow? That is a very, very common question. What I do in this situation, I don't have that anymore because I built a really strong channel, like a strong bridge. So I know my higher self's voice. I also know the tricky parts of Teri Jo that come in and say they're the higher self because I have that. But I'll be like, you're not the higher self. Get out of here. What do you want to say? What do you need to tell me? Not get out of here. I usually ask them what they want to say. But the other thing is just be very organic. If in this process that comes up, then you say, how do I know you're the higher self? And see what it says. And if you go to that voice and it feels like an imposter, you can say, this doesn't feel authentic. You don't feel like my higher self. But the clue is it's always loving and non-judgmental, like unconditionally loving. It doesn't have to be all fluffy, like you're my favorite person in the world, because it's going to speak in your voice, right? It may have a little humor. But it is always loving. And and then how do I trust that it even exists? That could be another question you ask your higher self. And maybe you have to ask that every day for a while until you really get that feeling of trust. That's what I'm working on right now because of the state of the world. My everyday question is, how do I feel safe? How do I know that you're really there? And always the answer comes. And then what if I ask for support and guidance and nothing comes forward? With that, I would just say, just sit in your loving, and maybe it's not a verbal message you're going to get. Maybe it's a feeling message, and maybe it's a visual. Um, but just keep trying the practice, you know. All right. So just in terms of time, I'm gonna quickly I'm gonna ask people to hop off now if they're not going to do the process. It's about 25 minutes plus it's about 30 minutes, let's just say. And then we'll take sharing at the end, which it's sharing is optional, obviously. So if you don't want to be part of it, I think Suara is going to send out a recording so you'll get the sharing part. That's just so you know if you want to share, you'll be recorded. Um, but this is what I want you to be thinking about while she's finishing polishing up the breakout rooms. Um, the one area you'd like guidance with. You see that one I asked about my brother because it's only 7 minutes. You're not going to have a lot of time. So stick to one area. If it's your career, mine lately have been the state of the world. You know, how do I feel safe? What can I do? What's mine to do? How do I know you're there? You know, how do I connect with you more? What's my self-care practice? So pick the thing. You know the thing. Raise your hand if you know the thing, the area you want to work on. Okay, beautiful. And so have that ready when we go into the thing. Now, this is the thing I need you to take a photo. So get your cameras because I don't have a way to distribute paper to you. It looks like a lot, but it's pretty simple. And if you don't have access to a camera or you forget to take a picture, just trust the process. You'll be fine. I just put as much detail as I can because this is the actual exploration. I'm going to start with a prayer as the whole group. You're going to go into your breakout rooms. I'm going to tell while you go in your breakout rooms, you're going to choose each of the roles. I'm going to come over the broadcast and say, so you won't start. You'll just choose your roles. I'm going to say, okay, everyone center yourself and yourself. I'll do a little centering really quick. And then I'll say you can start. Then you have 7 minutes for person number one in the share chair. Okay. So this is the things. You start with stating your intention. Do you have an intention for this process? Share about the situation you want help with. Share any blocks or struggles you're having. And then the sharer, asks for your higher self for guidance and support. And then you speak as the higher self to you and have a dialogue back and forth. And in the end, you can ask if the spirit has if your higher self has a blessing or any encouragement or anything else you might need. And then thank yourself and your higher self. I will come in and after 4 minutes, I'll come in and say you have 3 minutes left. So that's kind of the process. Now I'll take questions. Sorry, I know that was a lot. And I forgot to ask questions before people left the room to say if you had questions. So is there anyone who has questions? Oh, we want to go back on that process. And I'm going to stop the screen share so I could see more of you, but I can't figure out how to stop the screen share. That's the issue. No.
Hit escape.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I don't think I've ever done a PowerPoint on Zoom. Okay. Any questions before we get started? No? We're ready? We're good? Swore, how are the rooms? Are they looking pretty good?
It looks like we have one room of two.
Okay. So if you're in the room of two, you're going to do the first rotation, you're going to do the second rotation, then and I see a question in the comments. Then during the third rotation, you can talk about the higher self with each other, the things you know, the experiences you have. You can also do silent journal writing. You could say to them, I'd like to do some silent journal writing, but just stay in the breakout room, okay? And don't try to stay on this topic. Um, it's important to remind you also that your higher self has been listening to this whole conversation. Like that makes me so excited to tell you. Like, so it's like already in on all this, right? So Danny, you have a question?
The other two people stay silent.
No, so in the breakout rooms, there will be three in every room except one room will have two. So those two people in that room, it's just two of you, and of course Spirit is there, so it's really three of you. Um, you're gonna the sharer will go first, and the other person will be the facilitator. That will for be 7 minutes. In the second rotation, you'll switch roles. So that second person will be the sharer. And in the third rotation, you can just have a conversation for 7 minutes with each other. Or if you're feeling really inner, you can say, I'd like to do some meditation or some journal writing. And then you both need to do that.
Okay, so the facilitator will just ask the questions. They won't, when I took Konar before USM, they would act like a counselor kind of a role. That's not what's happening here, right?
Yes, thank you. Oh, thank you for clarifying that. The facilitator role in this case is really to just keep them on track. If they're stuck, because some people haven't done this before. And so if they're stuck, it's okay. Like you're telling the facilitator, this is my situation. I'm going through this. Um, and then you can say, I'm ready to talk to the higher self now. You know what I'm saying? It's just that the facilitator is not like, I mean, the facilitator might say, tell me more, I want to know more. It looks like more people have dropped off Suara. So maybe they don't want to do this process, which is okay. To break my heart. I saw a question in the chat. Is that clear, Danny?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And it's an exploration. There's no way to do it. So still not clear out what to do when the higher self is mute. Um, So that is a good question. You mean when you sit in the chair and nothing comes? And I say chair because we used to literally change chairs. When you ask your question and then you go for an answer and nothing is there. What I would do is I would say, Spirit, I'm nervous. Like I would go with really what's authentic in the moment. I'm really scared right now, Spirit, because I'm not hearing you. Like I can feel that part of me. Like, what if you're not there? Like, I have such fear about that. How do I know you're there? And then trust whatever comes in. What just came in when I did that was my grandmother, my maternal grandmother. And I feel emotion. She was just like, of course we're here. You're so loved. So just trust and be authentic. You don't have to make it up or fake it. Does that make sense? Okay, well, let's see. And it's an exploration. No wrong way to do this. I'm excited to see what happens. All right, so where are we ready? I know things have shifted around. We're at 25 now.
Yeah,
We're
things have shifted. It looks like we might have two rooms with two people. I'm going to open up all the rooms now if you're ready.
No, I'm going to do the prayer first. Um, do the other two people share with the share if they get a message? No, because this is not about the message you get. This is about the message the sharer gets. Now, there will be a 3-minute feedback at the very end of the trio. And in that, you could say, if something came through, but it's not really about what comes through to you. That could be very valuable, but I want us to have the experience of tuning into our own selves. So hopefully that's clear. All right, so let's close our eyelids if you're comfortable doing that. And Mother, Father, God, Great Spirit, all the angels, guides, teachers, and masters that work with the light. Boy, we grateful to have you here with us. To our higher selves, our guardian angels, our inner counselor, our souls. Thank you, thank you, thank you for bringing us to this experience, for all the ways that you help us learn and grow, for being so loving and compassionate with us, for listening so clearly to all the parts of us that are in need. We ask for a blessing of light on this experience. We ask for your voice to be clear and for our hearts to be open to hear whatever needs to be heard. And we ask this for this process to be light-hearted, easy, grace-filled, and joyous. And with that, I say, and so it is.
And so it is.
Okay. So we're ready, Suara. There's someone in the waiting room.
Ah.
I think someone dropped off and came back in, so that will add someone. Okay. So what you're going to do first when you go in the room, you're going to decide who's playing what role. Then I'm going to come in about 1 minute. So don't start. And I'll say, I'll do a centering process. And I'll do that for each rotation. All right. So we're at 27 now. You got it? You ready? Okay, so you can open the breakout rooms. Okay, so whoever this is with the heart, we need you to go into the breakout room with your, hopefully your camera on. If not, we're going to need to pull them out of a room and remove them because I don't know if they're here.
Hold on, they're not being assigned, so let me put them into a room. There we
Oh,
go.
no. Oh, okay, they haven't been assigned. Well, they're not on there, so I don't want them.
No, no, no. They didn't have anywhere to go. There was no button to click. I just put them, so they're in now.
Yeah, but they weren't on screen, so I was a little concerned. But okay, so I'm giving them a minute to do that. Can I see the breakout rooms? I can. Good. All right, it's awesome. Now, is everyone have 333?
Everyone now has 333.
Good. I forgot to tell them what to do if they have a question. I guess they can raise their hand and we can go into their circle, right?
Or when you broadcast, you can say, if you have a question, just raise your
Yeah.
digital.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm gonna go in and broadcast. Oh no, mine. You have to give me the host ability because I can't.
Okay, no worries. Gonna do it right now. Giving
I'm a
you.
little behind. I'm going to shave it off and do 6 minutes each thing instead of 7. Okay, so broadcast. Yes. Okay. Okay. Okay, so you should all have chosen your roles. And I forgot to mention, if you have a question, really try to hold off because you're only going to get a few minutes in each of these roles. But if you do have a question, raise your hand. There should be a button somewhere in there, and either Swore or I will come in. Okay, so now everyone's is in your roles, and you're going to center yourself in yourself. Invoke your inner counselor, your higher self, one and the same. Clarify your intention, and your intention is just what you want to get out of this experience. So it's good to have that. And I forgot to tell you the if you took a photo of the questions, it's basically I'm going to do a little rundown this first round. What is the situation? What are the questions you have? What do you need help with or support with? And then listen to what the higher self has to tell you and have a back and forth. And in the end, if you can ask if the higher self has any words of encouragement or a blessing for you. Okay, so you've clarified your intention. Your higher self is there. When you're ready, you can begin. Good job remembering, Suara. I always forget that. All right, I want to make sure everyone is here before I share. See, some people are still coming back. Let me get a sip of water. I see one of the rooms is still, yeah, chatting, which is great. Awesome. Looks like almost everyone is back.
While we're waiting, there was all your early messages were completely broken up. We couldn't hear you at all. So I'm glad you did whatever you did to fix some of them. So thank you.
Thank you for saying that. So you know what I think it was? Quantum Doug, I love your name. Um, the very first round, I was pressing on the button the whole time. And I realized by the second round, I just press it and then it keeps recording. So I was holding it, and I think that's what did it. And I worried. I'm like, oh, they probably couldn't hear me. Well, you were able to do it. So first of all, I want to do a little clearing. Anytime we do something like this, it's always good to call in the light. Again, the light is always with us, but it's good to ask for a specific clearing. So I'm going to ask just now, Mother, Father, God, Great Spirit, we ask for a clearing of anything that needs to be lifted and transformed and used in service. Any misunderstandings, judgments, any karma, any negative, anything that's no longer serving us here in this now or our soul's journey, we ask that it be lifted and cleared. And we ask for in its place a blessing of light, grace, humility, surrender, trust, beauty, joy, expansion, inspiration, exuberance. We are so, so grateful knowing our blessings and knowing that you are always with us. And so it is. So I would love to hear sharing from that process. It could be anything. Maybe you got stuck. That's okay. Like, just really let everything be okay from the process, or if you had any insights or understandings. And I'm sorry that we didn't have a little more time and space around the process. I would have appreciated that, but it is what it is. We have about 10 minutes and I want to finish on time. So does anyone want to be brave and share? Yay.
I'll be brave and share. Go ahead, Keisha. You gonna go ahead? Go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
no, go ahead. No, Keisha, go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to say thank you to Karen and Judy who were in my group and we were all brand new, and they shared space, no judgments whatsoever, and we all just jumped in. And even with the miscommunications, I think trusted our guidance, like we just went with the flow, right? And it was really interesting to see that we like tapped into our higher selves, and each of us could feel something for the other person, for everyone, really. And I'll say I was really surprised that I could do something like that for the first time, like with other people and sort of like on demand. And I shared this with the ladies, but I was going to drop out because I was super nervous and was like, oh, I don't know. But I stuck with it. And it was powerful. And I'm really glad I stayed. So thank you.
I love that. Thank you for sharing, Keisha. Beautiful, beautiful. Who else?
I'll share.
Yeah.
It just felt great to be in a forum and feel connected with people who felt like-minded and open and are into connecting in a different way to what I feel is the collective. Yeah. So thank you, Suara and Teri Jo, for making someone like me who feels comfortable with this feel connected.
Oh.
Connection was what I shared. I'm struggling with people who understand, empathetic people like myself. So I'm sorry I get emotional, but just thank you.
No apologies for the emotions. I love them. Yeah. Thank you, Tony. Thanks for being here.
I'll share. I was with I believe Susan and Tammy, and because the communication came in pretty gobbled up, we all sat there and stared at each other like, okay, so what do we do?
Uh-huh.
So we really didn't know what to do, and we slowly developed the conversation, and we just spoke to that. And I would say that I could feel like even right now, I can feel like there was an intense energy because I still feel it. And I guess it just has to do with what I was telling them. Like I get excited when I get around people because I spend a lot of time in the house or away from. So when I get out, it's like, I just got released and it's like I'm like, "Ah!" And people they probably think I'm on something or something like that. But I just get excited because I like connecting with people, period. I spent a lot of time up at Omega and that developed that ability a lot because I spoke to a lot of strangers and had the best conversations I've ever had. And I would say, no disrespect to you or nobody, that breakout room was the best part of the whole process.
All right. We love it.
So
Great.
thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Beautiful. Danny?
Well, it was interesting how the three of us had a similar focus that we were looking at different types of career things. But the takeaway I had is just reminding myself that it's the attitude, the adventure, the fun, taking baby steps, things like that. But the other issue that I didn't bring up was just to have more equanimity and more peace when I read the news about what's going on with the government. And it's really about attitude because I'm not going to change what's going on personally, but I could change my attitude and just have a good laugh about it and get bigger than it, and just like not sink into the the swamp, and getting caught up in the craziness, and just lighten up with it and just know this too shall pass and we're all going to die eventually. And the leader of our country, was an older man who just health doesn't look that good. And God bless him. He's just doing what he's doing the best he can. I may not agree with it, but so what? We don't agree with a lot of things in life. So
Yeah.
anyway, just have that perspective.
Yeah, I love that reminder about levity, like really bringing ourselves to a higher place to be able to see. And I don't mean high, like above, better than, but just bigger perspective. And I feel like with the higher self, that's what it does. It's like, hey, I'm here with you watching the news. I'm sitting here right here. Woo, it is a mess down there. But that kind of laughter and humor, which I know you have a lot of, Danny. All right, we have time for one more sharing, and then we're going to wrap it up. Is there anyone else that wanted to say anything?
I think Karen was unmuted before. Karen, do you want to chime in?
Actually, Keisha said it. We bonded. I mean, we seriously bonded. This was amazing. It was wonderful. So
Did
thank
you
you.
get each other's connection? Did you get each
Yes, we
other's?
did. Yes, we
Good,
did.
good, good. I love it. As a little side note, I do this trio process 3 times a month with 3 different groups. Like it's my counseling process, free counseling. We counsel each other. So I thought of you guys when you said you bonded. So thank you so much for coming. I'm sure Suara has some parting words. I just want to say what a privilege this is. I feel like you awakened the teacher in me. I haven't done it in a little while, and I haven't done anything like this with the experience on Zoom. I've done it in person, but what a wonderful audience you are, and all my love to you and to your higher self. Be besties. That's what I want to say.
And I just want to say thank you, Teri Jo, for sharing your wisdom and insight and all of your guidance here today. I could tell from the energy from the group and the feedback that people really enjoyed it, really connected together. This might be old hat for some people, but new for others. So thank you for exploring with us today. Thank you for your courage and stepping in, stepping up, and sharing within the group, being supportive with one another and holding the light with one another. Thank you. Thank you. Teri Jo, she's so humble. She's such a great teacher and a great leader as well. She has her own coaching practice. If anybody is willing or interested in maybe working with her one-on-one, I will share information around that when I release also the audio, the video recording for today's session. And we're hoping to hold more of these in the future. So keep an eye out for those emails, and hopefully we will see you there. And we can continue to build these connections, build this community, and meet with other people and build, just more energy and light in the world. So thank you for your presence here, everybody. It was so good to see you, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Okay? Okay, bye, everyone. Bye. Thank you. Let me stop the recording.